Hi, welcome back, guys. This is your friend, WTFW, with another fiction. What if Deku his journey as a ghost rider? Now, before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now, let's get into the fanfic. Why seek something you've already owned? Blaze's words rang in his mind. The tunnel of the dark void engulfed him yet again. Deku knew it though. But Johnny Blaze's words somehow made it sound so obvious. He had it in him all along. Maybe he's searching way too beyond than the answer. To go such an extent of traveling and interfering with another timeline on another world. It sure as comes with consequences, and he knows it. He's basically leading something directly towards the world he belongs. Maybe it probably will be too late before something else happens. However, Deku took all the time in the world talking with Blaze and his family. And he shouldn't have just wasted his time and could have thought of Eri. A guilt in him started to form. After all, he enjoyed a coffee break when Eri heartbeat lessened. What's wrong with him? Nothing's wrong. It's just that the knowledge about the time difference of traveling to each world might have killed his mind of urgency. Or is it that he was so desperate? But now, he do know a way. The way of saving Eri. The only way to revive her without damaging her soul or form. He finally got it. Or better say, he's about to get it. Deku slowly opened his eyes, which he didn't knew was closed. But there's some else he knows. He knows that the answer is right in front of him at the far distance of the dark void he's in. That answer he's looking for. It was that white light he saw before. The same one guide him or attracted him and lead him straight to Blaze. The white light floated in the spot as if it's waiting. Waiting for him to realize. To realize that it's basically him all along. Deku stared at the white light and took a deep breath. I think I'm no longer in ignorance. Deku said and saw the light move. Move towards him. As better he understands it, the closer the light gets. I was capable of turning into you all along. Deku said, and the light slowly came closer and closer. As it getting closer, he remembered each and every details of that white light. How its existence mattered also came back into his head. It felt like remembering something that you knew only some moments ago. Maybe he was aware of it all along. Maybe his troubled mind almost made him overthink and go beyond for something that was within reach all this time. But I know you now. He finished his lines and saw the light stop only some feet away. It would only take a reaching hand to consumed by its light. Incoming Eri. You'll open your eyes again, Deku thought, and with a confident smile, let himself in the white light, and everything turned blinding white. Meanwhile, the camp hall was silent, except for Izumi cries. The rider is now here. 1 second he's moving, but the next second he was still as a statue. His palm was on Eri's head, and that's another reason why nobody moving closer to Eri. The last thing they want is mess with the rider. Even though they have advantage in numbers, there's no doubt he won't take long to destroy each and every one of them without any effort. But something they didn't expect was his reaction. Ryder wasn't an emotional type in their imagination. Things are different if compared it to your expectations. It's an obvious lesson, though. Everyone stayed silent, and some of them didn't even notice that the rider is spaced out because it's only been 10 seconds since he closed his eyes. But for Izumi and teachers, that 10 seconds gone like a full hour. Kodachi never left, and it's still in his normal Raven form. Only Kodachi is capable of understanding what's going on with its master. And Kodachi knew that its master is not spiritually here, even though his body is here. Where's the ambulance, Mr. Aizawa? Izumi shouted, ending the silence all at once. Even though Eri is with her only for a short while, the little girl really stole her heart. Maybe that's why she's the one taking Eri's condition worse than anyone else. Aizawa snapped out of the trance and looks at her. What should he be saying? They're in middle of a thick jungle. Even if the best driver in the world to drive around the jungle, it will take more than 20 minutes. It's a low blow for the teachers to choose such a location. Maybe they were overconfident. They've underestimated the capabilities of the villain. and they forgot even the rider could interfere if wanted. The rider saved them. Each of them. It's hard to convince themselves that. But it's the truth. However, there's another possible truth. When he opened his eyes and something worse happens to Eri, then their savior going to be their nightmare. If only the situation was less tense or nothing was on stakes, maybe they would have tried to fight and arrest him. But provoking him now obvious the foolish move. Aye. Aizawa found himself stuttering. It's not the first time someone is dying in front of him, and he's helpless. Even if they try to transport Eri with their quirks, it only open up her wound further and kill her immediately. Maybe the rider knew it. They don't know what to do even though it's only seconds since he closed his eyes. We should have taken her to hospital by ourselves. It's all my fault. Izumi cried out. She really wants to push the rider away and run away holding Eri in her hands. But she knew it was pointless. It's nobody's fault, Izumi. The ambulance will be here in any second. Please hang in there. Mandalay tried to calm her down even though she doesn't know what to do as well. Their own training ground turned out to be the biggest trap they trapped in. They've learnt their lesson in a hard way, and that lesson cost almost Eri life. Almost means she's still breathing. They are ashamed to even call themselves heroes. They can't even save a child who's taking her final breaths right in front of them. Izumi just shook her head and cried louder. Heartbroken cries made other students tear up more. This side of Izumi is paining to watch. They prefer that confident, cheerful, and feisty Izumi. This person crying for Eri seemed like someone else. Someone so fragile and losing their sanity. A minute passed, and everyone kept their head low in hopes of hearing a siren of an ambulance. In their knowledge, that's the only source which can help Eri. Izumi took Eri's hand and kissed her small, unmoving knuckles. Please, wake up, she begged. Begged to both Eri and God. Even though Eri couldn't hear those pleadings, somebody else could. And that somebody ain't a god as well. Kodachi was only next to Eri, and being an abnormal bird, others could almost understand its movements. Because, all of a sudden Kodachi seemed snapped its head in the rider direction. Because of being next to Eri, almost everyone saw the change in the bird behavior. Maybe it was a sign. The sign of what's going to happen next. Even though they knew it's going to be big, didn't exactly knew what. But for them, it didn't took any more time, because dark smoke started to rise from the rider. Izumi and others had their eyes focusing on the rider all of a sudden. That smoke. It only appeared when they seen him covered in green fire. His gloved hand still rested on top of Eri's forehead, not adding any pressure or weight in it. Each and every eyes are on them right now. They saw his hooded head move awkwardly, just like in a horror movie. It's like he's transforming into his fire form, which none of them seen, because his hood never revealed his identity. But they've only heard stories of his appearance. He ain't so beautiful when he's transformed. That's only thing they knew. Well, they've heard of him being a skeletal figure. But it's not what they believe. They won't believe even if they wants to. It's just way too much for believing. The smoke intensified, and soon there was a sound of the fire. And eventually, they saw the fire coming out of the hood. Not heat radiating, nor the smoke chocked their windpipes. It's like an artificial fire though. Looks like fire, but doesn't act like fire. Even though it's capable of turning somebody into ashes. It doesn't make sense though. And they completely missed the fact that the ground he's standing already started to melt. Usually they're afraid and intimidated when they seen his usual fire form with the breathtaking green beauty of a fire. But not this time. No. This time they are amazed, confused, and clueless when they saw the fire on him. No longer the emerald-like fire is there. The fire is pure white now. With this fire, his nickname doesn't match up with his appearance anymore. White flames on vigilante, or whatever he is, made the name Green Flame less sensible. But this white fire is somehow more beautiful than the green one. It almost replicated the color of an angel. The room held their breath, and eventually the rider moved to look at Iri's wound. The bandage Mandalay applied slowly started to burn away, and Izumi was about to freak out. But to her surprise, the fire is not burning Iri. It's so strange. This ghost rider is something else, and they admit that it's literally impossible to understand who, what, and how is he. Where did he even come from? What happened to his green fire quirk? There's another old question, everybody trying to find the answer of. What is his quirk? What does it do? Being a walking mystery he is, they obviously don't have the answer. What are you doing? Izumi mumbled with wide eyes as she watched what's going. But instead of hearing his words, she only saw his fire brighten more and more. Everyone slowly stood up and watched, both confused and afraid. What's going on? Is he doing something to Eri? If so, why? The teachers looked at one another and was ready to take the action. But everyone stopped midway when the white glow of his fire slowly engulfed Iri's motionless body. It's not the fire that engulfed her, and it's clear. The magic of some sort happened soon after. To everyone's surprise, the blood on Iri's neck slowly vanished, and soon the cut on her neck started to throb. And the dirt and dried blood on her wound slowly vanished when the white glow covered them. Izumi's heart was beating fast and breathing hitched when she saw the cut slowly started to get smaller and smaller until not even a trace of the wound is visible anymore. As if that's the sign, Rider Glow disappeared, and the smoke and fire also ceased immediately. The room stayed still and silent, and everyone including Aizawa's eyes are widened and mouth agape. Her wound, the one that was killing her, it's not there anymore. With shaky and hesitant hand, Izumi reached and ran her fingers on Iri's neck, where the injury was some seconds ago. Her eyes aren't playing tricks on her. It's all true. Even a small scar cannot be seen, and even the cuts on her small body was also vanished. What kind of trickery is this? What the hell? Izumi mumbled, running her eyes all over Iri. Disbelief is the evident emotion everyone saw on her other than pure shock. What other miracles they are yet to see? What else this vigilante could do? What is the extent of his quirk? Maybe they'll never know. The breath they didn't knew they were holding finally left their lungs. Past few hours didn't go in their favor, and Iri's condition almost sent them in a trance of self-loath and guilt. They believed that it's their fault. After all, they could only watch her die. Now it's time to wait for Iri to wake up. They started to believe that she's saved, because the wound killing her disappeared. They prayed to God, she wakes up. After all, there's hope now. Everyone looks at one another, as if to confirm everything happening is in fact true. And it is true. They watched Izumi shaking hands roaming all over Iri's head, neck and hands, confirming that her wound's no longer present. However, suddenly Iri's small frame jolted up, eyes widened and mouth agape, with a deep and long gasp, which almost made others flinch. Iri's gasp was for the air her lungs lacking at the time. Tears flowed, indicating her struggle to breathe properly. Her heart beat fast. Not anymore, it's dying. Not anymore, it's silent. It was beating loud and lively, as it should be. Soon followed her coughing and wheezing. Izumi snapped out of her trance and held Iri close, rubbing her back gently. It's okay. Breathe in slowly. She whispered something along those lines, and nobody missed the happy and relieved tears flowing down Izumi's cheeks. Because she's finally feeling alive again. They stayed like that for a couple of minutes, and Izumi did her best to make Iri breathing back to normal. Not every day things like this happened. Nobody didn't came closer, though. It wasn't because of the rider. It's probably because of the sight they are seeing is too good to be ruined. Izumi relieved. Small smile proved that how much happy she is. Obviously the happiness cannot be scaled, but they guessed its depth. I'm sorry, Izumi finally said when Iri finally breathing and regained almost every part of her senses. She's awake. Confused but awake. She heard everything, including Izumi's heartbeat when she was in her embrace. Eri only tightened her hold on Izumi and buried her face deep into Izumi's shoulder. She remembers what happened, and it's a sign that tells Eri is aware why Izumi is apologizing. Eri remembers the monster who hurted them. But that's all she remembered. The rider presence and what he did was the only thing that she's unaware of. Eri nodded. That's all. Izumi kept mumbling her apologies, and some time passed just like that. Kodachi eventually approached and tapped its beak on Eri's leg, which attracted both of their attention. Izumi looked down and surprised how happy it looked even though it's only a bird. Why is like this though? Why is it good and evil at the same time? Just like its owner. That thought caused Izumi to look up at the rider and saw two glowing eyes in the darkness of the hood. But this time a silhouette of a face was visible. It didn't reveal his identity, but it only showed the shape of his lower jaw. Kodachi. First time after she woke up, Eri talked. Almost shrieked seeing the bird. But she still clung on to Izumi, not letting go. Izumi, however, was lost in the eyes of the rider. It wasn't because it's breathtakingly beautiful. It was because of how familiar it looked. She's seen those eyes before, and she never got a close look at his before. The rider was closely watching Eri, and that's why she had the chance to get a closer look at him. Now he didn't intimidate them. He's happy. His eyes gave it away. Eri reached down and patted Kodachi's head with one hand. Kodachi seemed like loving the kind gesture. A mysterious creature indeed, just like the rider. Thank you, Izumi subconsciously said to the rider. She didn't even meant to say it out loud, though. But she said it, making the rider look at her, and finally Eri's eyes landed on Mr. Izu. Deku didn't utter a single word to it, but Eri's eyes sparkled and stretched out both her hands as she sat on Izumi's lap. Eri could only smile wide. She was too happy that she didn't know what to say. Everyone looks at Eri with wide eyes and then back at the rider. They didn't know what to expect. Eri basically inviting the ghost rider for a hug. To everyone's surprise, the rider slowly leaned to her level and scooped her up by a warm hug, and he stood up with her in his embrace, and just as he turned around, Eri's hand hit his hood, causing it to fall off of his head. He didn't care though. He just kept Eri close and calmed her mind even further with his warmth, which always kept her calm. Nobody saw his face, but only his white hair. Nobody was familiar with the white hair except for one. Uraraka. She's seen it before and remembered who it belongs to. Deku, she mumbled. The boy she had crush on. The boy who smiled at her. The boy at the mall bumped onto her. The boy who calmed her down at the stadium. The ghost rider. She ain't mistaken, and she's sure of it. That hair if his gave him away. And now it makes sense why his eyes were familiar. When she first met Deku, it was the rider's green eyes that looked back at her. She missed something obvious. Deku is the ghost rider. The vigilante they're scared of. The aftermath resulted in various events to unfold. The news was gruesome. The attack at the camp was live that morning on every news channel. That means not only civilians and sinners watched, but also the parents of the students as well. Nezu was picking up phone calls after phone calls while the teachers gathered around him. They're back from the camp and let the kids rest for the week. Parents complained, but they do realize what it takes to become heroes. Some of them needed assurance and convincing. And so Nezu informed them that they can come visit their kids for next few days. Gladly, no students were hurt. That's one of the events. But there's more. The news channel was in, and the horror back at the camp was unfolded before everyone's eyes. Maybe the entirety of Japan witnessed carnage inside a big crater that looks similar to a giant footprint. Inside the crater, a graphic display was aired with disclaimer, and those who saw it vomited, and the horror was unbelievable. Maybe that's why the parents were worried the most. Izumi and her friends, like always, gathered around the big TV room and watched the horrific sight. Eri sat on Izumi's lap. The rider never talked anything after that. He apologized to Eri and then left. No one dared to stop him. But they never saw that intimidating and confidence on his body language when he left. They saw him forcing his own movements. Uraraka was acting strange ever since then. What is it bothering her was unknown to them. The brunette seemed want to say something to them and teachers after the writer left. But she never spoke anything ever since. She's not even watching the news with them anymore. She's still locked in her room. You go on. I'll catch up, is the only response if they knocked on her door. Something's bothering her. They're aware of it. But they're afraid if they'll bother her that way. The students were all felt sick down in their stomach seeing the display. The villain who attacked them, the ones who hurted them, is now are nothing but some pile of flesh on a disturbed ground. But what caused such a crater? It's almost looked like a giant footprint, but who it belongs to, they doesn't know. Whoever they've seen at the camp, none of them are this huge. It cannot be just a coincidence, because next to the crater, there's another huge footprint life formations. The mystery, however, ended up with the writer. The reports claimed that they're comparing footprints with the big ones. It's stupid when it sounds, but it's the logical way here. Momo changed the channel, making others look at her confused. Momo only motioned at Eri with her head. She's right. Even though Eri is comfortable around the writer, but the graphic scenes are too much for a child like her. But what they don't know is that Eri doesn't care about it much. She have experienced being just a flesh pile when Overhaul was around her. But the scenes like these reminded her of him, which means the sight alone doesn't bother her, but the memory it brings. So, Todoroki, I've never asked, is your father all right now? Momo changed the subject. Todoroki stiffened and recalled that day. He visited his old man that day. He heard things he didn't want to hear. He's not fine at all, Todoroki truthfully said. They nodded, showing pity. And I fear he lost to me already. Todoroki said more to himself. His wish was to defeat his old man all by himself. But now Endeavor is just Enji, a quirkless hero that world yet to be seen. Nobody except the doctors, teachers, him and his sister knows that Endeavor lost his fire. The writer claimed his trophy that day. Mirko already back on duties, and she's more ruthless now. Even though she's in bad terms with the former number 2 hero, she blamed for being useless that time. The writer is a big red X in her eyes, and she'll find him. That little kid is a bigger threat than anything she ever faced. All Might and Endeavor is strong, but the writer is chaos. She heard only positive about him when interrogating the people he saved. But there's no guarantee that he's capable of hypnotizing or something. What if they're just the puppets to divert their attention? What do you meant by that? Momo asked. There's some time I want to believe that on my own. But I'll explain everything later, he replied. Sure, take all time you want. It's okay if you don't want to talk about it either. We understand you, Momo said with a reassuring smile. Others nodded. She's right, bro. We got your back, you know, Kirishima added. No, I want to talk about it. It's important. For me at least. But I want some time to adjust. Have to scrap some of the fantasies. I'll be fine, he said, shaking his head. His words confused them. But they didn't push him any further. Izumi looks at his way and then back at Eri. Back at the camp, there was those minutes where she thought Eri won't be with them anymore. She was lying when she said she have hope. In reality, it was some empty thoughts of crazy chick who almost lost everything. She ever since kept Eri close, but she wasn't overprotective. It's lessons she learned with all those nightmares. She doesn't want the history to repeat. I've heard our parent are visiting tomorrow. Are you guys excited? Gyro asked. Such an important topic. They know that their parents literally gonna hug them or go crazy when see those minor wounds on them. Bakugo scoffed, and some nodded and some shrugged. What's there to say? It's obvious. It'll go smoothly, Kaminari said. In their way, Zero added. They've talked for some time and spent hours doing random things they're pleased with. But never have they forgot anything happened back at the camp. Maybe it's all an excuse to forget it somehow. And then it's the events with the officials. Mirko described the writer to a sketch artist at the police station. She clearly remembered the boy who had that terrifying aura around him and squashed them with those weird powers. His sharp and young face, bone-chilling gaze, messy white hair, everything. But the sketch artist could do so much, and when the sketch is finished, there's only just resemblances. Mirko was unsatisfied by the results, but she knew better than to be so picky. She handed the sketch to Tsukachi, and he's in middle of discussing with higher-ups to spread this sketch all around. Overall, the capture of the so-called vigilante is coming closer. When that day arrives, it's self-explanatory that the biggest threat of them all came to an end. Maybe their ignorance is the source of that. They doesn't know what happened to Endeavor. Those who are afraid is powered up by the greed of money, and the noticeable decrease in those types are evident as well. It's just matter of time before the sketch would be revealed to outside world. The prize money also going to be so rich that a fool will think the culprit himself surrender. And there's meeting every single day, and the Tokyo government was rumored to contact and seek backups from the outside. This time, there's not going to be taking chances. They'll be well prepared. Meanwhile, the lure to All Might is come to an end. Right, Doctor. All for One's voice echoed as his eyeless face stared at the many glass tubes in front of him. They're wiped out. No one survived. Even the Namu are eliminated. The doctor reported without zero remorse in his voice. Even All for One doesn't seem to be mourning his beloved successor demise. But there's a smirk in his oxygen mask which cannot be missed. But you've got something, Doctor. What is it? All for One said knowingly. Maybe the evil always thinks the same way. The doctor laughed manically. Heroes won't find much flesh out there. I've got the half of their body. All I need is their DNA and some modifications. We only need Namu if no successor is capable of welding your strength. The doctor said. You flattering me. But I think there should be more men with us armed. And you know what I want. All for One said. Gigantomachia will be there. The doctor said. Maybe I'm still gonna live for the day I see All Might fall. And I won't forget this ghost haunting the villain either. All for One said and enjoyed the sight in front of him. Namu looks way too interesting today. Maybe it's because there's certain someone is turning into his favorite creation. Elsewhere. Chaos everywhere. Pure carnage. Mutilated corpse littered all over the alleyway. People are alerted when they heard screams, roars, and that's why the hero are here. Investigating the onslaught, and half of them didn't have the guts to stay around. The sight was that horrible. It's almost impossible to figure out if the corpses belongs to a human or not. That's how dismembered they are. Police arrived soon after, followed by the forensic experts, and confirmed the dead bodies belongs to humans. There were blood, gore and burn all over, and no ashes, but straight up melted candle like bloody piles. Even the toughest of them felt sick down their guts. But the burn gave away the culprit, and it was obvious. The culprit identity is seen by the melting corpses, and they've seen it before. It's safe to say, the writer is behind this sickening massacre. Some bodies are figured, and the writer broke one pattern here. The died ones aren't heroes or villains, but the normal civilians themselves. This time, the writer went overboard. Not like his kills were less of a carnage, but this time it's just normal people. The writer. He's now the main priority for the execution list. He's a threat that should be eliminated. You've been so down recently, Ira. Izumi spoke. She thought of having some fresh air, and in middle of the night. She wasn't expecting Uraraka up and thinking the same as her. The brunette, in the other hand, seemed lost in her own world, thinking as she looks up at the starless night. The rainy clouds hid most of the light, and the heavy rain cooled down the atmosphere. It's maybe not a perfect night to think something and expect the stars to guide to the answers. But it's still a night. Uraraka doesn't look bothered by the rain anyway. Maybe the rain is a physical picture of her mood. If that's how it is, she chose a perfect night to think of things. But Uraraka is also looks like she's stressed out. That tense-looking shoulder give away that details. Izumi noticed it because she's been there. Her life never was a perfect roller coaster. It was a road with many turns. She always chose the wrong one, even when the outcome is obvious. Everyone's life can be described as the said road, and they also takes different paths. But in her case, maybe she's too tired of herself. Uraraka is going through the same. Almost like a decision meant to be taken. Izumi won't push her. That's a promise. Uraraka was startled, but calmed down when seeing Izumi. Oh, hey yeah, I'm fine. Uraraka stuttered. Izumi sent an apologetic look and spoke. I don't know about that. I know the camp went horribly wrong. Ever since Iri got hurt, I've noticed you're so gloomy or distant. I didn't have the right to say this, but you should not be dealing with guilt. It's not your fault if you think that way. Izumi spoke way too much and way too fast. But Uraraka understood her. No, I'm not. Thinking all that? It's just. Uraraka fumbled with words. What on earth she's supposed to say? That the writer is supposed to be the boy you guys mistaken as my crush. That'll sound. Well, she doesn't know how it'll sound. Izumi shook her head and moved closer and surprised Uraraka with warm hug. It's okay. It's okay to not talk about it. Just calm a bit. I know you're stressed. Izumi whispered and slowly patted Yura back. Uraraka wasn't expecting this to happen. But she let her muscles relax, and it's been a while since she was tensed. Izumi and her magical hug. But I want to talk. Just need some time. I thought I've experienced a lot. Guess I was dead wrong. Uraraka whispered back, melting more into Izumi's hug. It sounds way too much for you, Yura. Just feel free to drop by any time you want. You're not disturbing me, No matter what hour it is, just knock on my door. You're always welcome. Izumi comforted. Izumi felt her nod and heard a small and sad chuckle. Thank you, Ame. A year ago, I would have cried all alone and nobody would have seen it. Nowadays, I don't feel lonely anymore. You always were nice to me. Thank you. Uraraka mumbled softly. Don't thank me, silly. We're besties after all. Izumi said back, still hugging her. I learnt a thing or two from Izuku. He did the same for me. I am basically continuing what he started doing. Be nice to everyone. Izumi added. Maybe she's way too emotional for Yura. That's why she started thinking about Izuku. A brother she lost way too early. Maybe his absence was a punishment. A punishment for everything she and others done to him. Uraraka reminds her of him. Both are so kind and inspiring and most importantly, lovable. When Izumi broke the hug, she didn't expect a stunned Uraraka. The brunette stared at Izumi like she saw something mesmerizing. Izumi raised a brow and realized that Uraraka is actually looking at her eyes. Yura, why are you looking at me like that? Izumi asked, confused. Uraraka snapped out of the trance she's in. Those unmistakable similar eyes got her attention. But she shook her head. No, nothing. I was just thankful for your words. Uraraka said, and Izumi nodded. For some moments both girls leaned onto the railing of the balcony and remained silent. Izumi sensed Uraraka's eyes on her, and before she asked something, Uraraka asked something else. You know that you never talked about what happened. You, Bakugo, and your brother. What happened between you guys? What happened to your brother? I remember you told me that you'll explain it later. We never got a chance after that. Uraraka said. Izumi looks at her and nodded. That's a talking point she delayed way too much. They knows he's dead, but the details are still unknown. He born different. That's how it began. Me, Izuku, and Bakugo used to be shared some deep relationship. We were like inseparable and made many empty promises. I remember that day when the three of us promised one another that we'll be superheroes together and become the next All Might. When each of us kids was gifted with our quirks, Bakugo and I was so happy. Izumi started and Uraraka stared back at her surprised. She wasn't expecting Izumi to speak up. But Uraraka still looked at Izumi eyes though. One day when Mama took him to the hospital, doctor revealed that he won't get any quirk. Ever since then, things changed. Me and Bakugo changed. When Izuku told us about his condition, Bakugo was angry, telling that Izuku broke the promise. Me and Bakugo fought because of it. He wanted to hurt Izuku, and I wanted to stick by his side. Izumi stopped and sighed. She looks at Uraraka, who stared back as if processing everything. But eventually I too started to be like those who around me. I befriended some bad kids, and I started to become one of them. My emo girl appearance is the result of that. Bakugo was with the same gang, and over time me and him started to become close. Izuku was just a forgotten subject back then. Bakugo was mad at him, not me. And me, on the other hand, was being manipulated by the people I hung out with. And I started to pick on Izuku, and my so-called buddies joined too. Bakugo took the opportunity to hurt him more, and the bitch who I am didn't even stop. I've let it all happen. But he never hated me, and at some point I've caught many of the so-called buddies lying. They just using me, or better say pretending to be all nice, and I got into an argument with Bakugo about his friends. He never approved of my claims, and we got into some back and forth, and we stopped talking to each other again. That's how our feud began. I felt like a fool, and I drifted more into a bitch, and this time I was all alone. I never used drugs or anything. But the depression acted like one. I've been reckless and was so mad at everything. I started to lose temper easily, and at some point I had a razor right above my pulse, about to end everything. I thought my problems were the worst. Then I remember Izuku slapping the blade out of my hands and hugged me like I did to you and begged me to calm down. He even told me to hit him instead to relieve my piled up anger and stress. That day I cried, and he hugged me, and it took me some time to redeem myself, and then I started to see from Izuku's perspective, and I realized one thing. My problems are just nothing compared to his. His world was completely different mine. I asked him one day that why aren't you sad when those people made fun of him? He just replied that it wasn't all normal. He told me that it's been happening since he was quirkless, and I've been so blind. On top of all that, I was one of them. So I again made the wrong decision. Instead of loving him normally, I've gone overboard and was an overprotective person, and thinking back now, I realized that I made his freedom restricted. Izumi continued, and unknowingly tears fell. No matter how much time have passed, the guilt is so powerful to be forgotten. It always reminds her that he'll never come back. He's gone. I was so mean to him, and I was the bitch who forced him to quit his dream. The night Izuku passed away, he told me that he'll quit and won't go for UA. He always wanted to be here, and I blame myself. I still do. If I wasn't mean to him that day, he wouldn't have gone to the library, and a car wouldn't have ended his life. Izumi finished, and she was already sobbing, and Uraraka was hugging her the same way she did. Uraraka tried to calm her down, and she found the gesture helpful. Hey, there, don't cry. We can't change what happened. I'm sure you realizing your mistake is a good thing. You don't have to live in ignorance. Yura spoke in small whispers. But why? Aren't you mad at me? I was a horrible sister. Izumi asked, sniffling a bit. Uraraka shrugged. She have something to figure out. But she can't leave Izumi like this. I too was a horrible daughter. I couldn't help my parents, and I don't have anything to give them now either. But you know something? My parents doesn't think of me that way. I'm sure your brother thinks the same about you. Uraraka spoke gently. She has doubts. Izumi's eyes have that same beauty, as the supposed boyfriend of hers. She remembers his face, and thinking of him now, she recalled how lost she was. His scent messed with her head, but his scent won't work here. It's just a doubt that needs confirmation. But she knows who is the boy she bumped into actually is. She only wants the confirmation of those green eyes. But even if she's right, how is possible to see a ghost or touch them? It was not even a hallucination either. I don't know, Izumi mumbled. Uraraka needs the confirmation, and so she decided one thing. It okay. Now, come on, I'll drop you at your room. Yura said and guided Izumi towards her room, and Izumi let her. The confirmation is in Izumi's room. It's just a matter of moments. They slowly made it to the second floor, and Uraraka opened Izumi's door, and they entered. Uraraka wasn't in that much of a hurry, and she gently made Izumi sit on the bed. You okay? I've been better, Izumi said with a small tired smile. She's drained. Maybe she's more tired than she thought. After all, she doesn't sleep much after the camp and always checked on Eri. Uraraka smiled back, and then slowly looks towards the table where a small framed portrait sat. Those broccoli hair and green eyes, round face and freckles. Even though the boy she knows have sharp features and white hair, the face is still recognizable. The confirmation she was looking for. The dead man is out of the grave. The next day at the mall, Uraraka walked along with the crowd and her eyes are all over the place. After last night, she couldn't stay still. She's here for two things. First is to refresh her mind, and the second is, she's hoping to find someone particular here. If he's someone who finds this place somewhat refreshing, then he'll be here. She have a lot to speak, and she'll find him. She's been here for a whole morning and noon, and sadly her parents couldn't be there, so she was here all alone. But that's not an inconvenience. Eventually, she sat on a familiar bench where she always sits. Many people passed by and some smiled upon recognition, and she returned the favor. Just like that, some time passed. She almost stood up and walked away. Well, she stood up. But before walking away, the familiar scent hit her nose. It calmed her nerves, but this time she's prepared. Oh, sweetie, I'm glad you are not hurt, Inko said, bear-hugging Izumi. Wasn't I keep saying the same thing? Izumi replied, not bothered by the crushing hug. She's used to it. No, you said, you're fine, which is clearly not. Inko replied, breaking the hug, and cupped Izumi's cheeks with both hands. Look at you, all skinny and pale. I'm guessing that the cafeteria is your least favorite of this place. Inko mumbled, concerned, making Izumi sigh. I'm fine, Izumi said. Nope. Not until you have some nutrition back in your system. Which is why I'm here. Inko replied with warm smile. Nutrition back in system? Who speaks like that? It's way too dramatic. You know, Mom? Izumi pointed out. Inko shrugged. I've picked couple of things watching movies, you know. It sounds cool saying big punchlines, she said with a goofy smile. Izumi shook her head, chuckling. You're the same, Mom. I think I missed you more than I expected. Izumi mumbled enough for Inko to hear. Aw, I missed you too, honey. Maybe the dormitory idea was way too much in my opinion. But I can't risk your safety by letting you travel all by yourself every day, Inko said, hugging Izumi again. I know, Mom. But I love it here as much as I'm with you. It's all part of being a hero, you know. Don't worry, okay? I promise I'll call you every day. Izumi promised. Mama happy to hear that, Inko said. They eventually let go and Inko's eyes traveled towards another way, and a surprised and happy glint appeared in her eyes. Izumi followed her gaze, which landed on Arish, who stood there watching them. Ah, who do we have here? Inko said and slowly moved closer to Eri. Inko crouched next to her and smiled. Hello there, sweetie. What's your name? Inko asked sweetly. Eri's eyes widened when she asked her that. Maybe she wasn't expecting this woman to be nice as well. Eri looks up at Izumi, who chuckled and nodded. Eri took that as a assurance and nodded. "I'm Eri," she replied with a small smile. She at least knows that this woman is very special for Izumi. What's a true mother is, she forgot. Inko chuckled by her cuteness and playfully pinched her cheek. "Nice to meet you, Eri," she said. "She's been staying with us. Been a while. I think I forgot to mention her," Izumi apologetically said. "You haven't called for a while, so it explains why I'm not aware of this child." Inko replied with a pout, looking at Izumi. "Oh, come on. I told you. I'll call you from now on." Izumi defended herself. "Sure you will." Inko shrugged. "I mean it," Izumi said again. "I know you mean it, but I think you should prove it. Call me every day around 7. Then I'll believe you. And not buts," Inko playfully ordered. How about 8? I'll probably downstairs around 7." Izumi started, but immediately shut up when realizing that Inko was only seems interested in talking with Eri, who also seems happy about it. It a rare sight of seeing Eri all happy. Ever since the camp, her dear Mr. Izu almost stopped visiting. If only she saw the carnage he left behind. Even though he saved them, his way was too much of a chaos. The aftermath of the massacre still sends shivers down their spine. But the reality is also that a serial killer vigilante saved them. It way too chaotic to think about. Half an hour later, everyone was at the living room. Parents talked with one another, and even the students were talking. Izumi sat there bored and sometimes faced an equally irritated Bakugo. Everyone was there except for Uraraka and Todoroki. Todoroki is visiting his old man. And about Uraraka, nobody saw her since the morning. Even her parents aren't there. Izumi didn't try to be so pushy, so she didn't try to find Yura. She's probably wanting some time. But the reason for her behavior still haven't been clear. But Izumi trusts her. Yura told her that she will talk to her. But suddenly Mina came down the stairs and rushed towards the TV. They found it. She shouted and turned on the TV. Meanwhile, her brown eyes traveled around the crowded mall. She knows his presence. He's here. Out of all the tries she's willing to find him, he's right in front of her in the first try. If it's not luck, then what it is? Her eyes searched everyone passed around her, but none of them was familiar. However, the sense of his presence is still lingered. He's here somewhere. Uraraka took some deep breath and moved forward. She tried to remember the last time she saw him and where she bumped into him. But that was just a random spot. It could be anywhere near the ice cream shop. Uraraka wasn't sure how is she feeling now. The boy she thought was attractive and normal turns out to be the one who's behind all those gruesome murders. Ever since that fire pillar up in the sky, the world first encountered the Ghost Rider or Green Flame at that time. The last description she has in mind for the Ghost Rider is him being a teenager and have a breathtaking appearance. She expected a grown-up or a creature or monster. He doesn't look like any of them. Shaking off the wandering thoughts, Uraraka proceeded forward. But there was a moment where she realized that she found him. There in a side bench, he sat staring at her with an intense glare. It's almost as if he's waiting. Uraraka's heart skipped a beat. Not because of his attractiveness, but instead of a feeling uneasiness. He seemed incredibly calm, yet threatening. His eyes almost glowed with those unreadable emotion in them. Overall, this time, he seemed different. Differs than the boy she saw some time ago. There's no longer he has that smile on him. Safe to say he generated an aura just like the Ghost Rider. The mysterious vigilante finally have his cover blown. But there's this fear in her. Fear of seeing a dead man. If he's the same person she think he is, then how come he got resurrected? He's dead, right? If only Izumi would have been lying all this time about his death. Maybe he never died. It's not possible for a died person to sit on a bench in middle of the mall, who seem way too real and people can see him. Is the reason why his name is Ghost Rider? anything to do with him being an actual ghost? If so, she didn't know that it's possible to touch a ghost. Uraraka stood there and didn't even move. She watched him, and little did she expected him to vanish, just like an actual ghost would. But that never happened. Instead, he slowly stood up, making her a bit uneasy. The revelation of who he is really messing with her brain now. She did somehow expected him to throw a ball of fire at her. Doesn't know why though. But she did. But he didn't do anything, except took some steps forward. It felt like her heart sinking in a deep fear. She doesn't show the fear though. Why is she afraid? Well, she doesn't know. It doesn't make sense. Just like this boy walking right now. It's like the dead man walking phrase come to reality. She stopped herself from taking few steps back when the aura around him radiated a powerful intensity. And he's not even close to her yet. By that feeling, she do know what kind of a threat he is. If she was fighting him, she would have think twice before standing her ground. She can picture all those possibilities when she gets on his bad side. She witnessed his carnage. This boy, or the Ghost Rider, is a villain that doesn't make sense. A murderer who also sometimes a savior. But he only known for who he actually is. A monster. Even though the incidents happened with him saving them times, their view on him never changed. It's because of the news. There's always a news about the notorious and mysterious vigilante. There's no way one could figure out what he really is. If only there's something really wrong with his brain. Why save and kill at the same time? No answers. But she does have a feeling that she'll know soon enough. At least she will question him, even if it's the last thing she'll do. The boy moved closer and closer, and some of the passerby bumped into him didn't bother to stop and complain, because they felt that aura too. They doesn't know him, yet they figured it out that he's the wrong guy to mess with. His concentration stayed on her until he's right in front of her and towering her. This time no hood hid his face like he always did when he was going all savior act on them. Nobody will expect this young boy in that dark leather hood and green fire. His fire probably would engulf his hair whenever he used his strange quirk. That's probably enough reasons for hiding his head. Well, that's just a guess. But this time, she have feeling telling that the reality is way extreme than any theories or guesses. He's the living proof of that. Well, undead in his case. One expected a monster. Turns out a boy hiding in plain sight. He's just seemed an expert at it. After all, he fooled her. She doubt his words now. She no longer have that trust in him. He looks down at her like she's looking up at him. The only difference is that only one of them seem unaffected. He's still while she's troubled. But her inner struggles to stay calm is also not well hidden. She took some breath and sighed. After all, out of all the people, only one managed to go through everything and find out who really I am. Huh, he said in a low voice. It surprised her though. She had a feeling that he knows what she knows. But it still surprised her. Little bit she thought, he will deny. Turns out he already accepted everything. But there's a bunch of questions in her mind. Out of all the possibilities, turns out you are the one everyone's after. Hiding where everyone will see, but won't recognize. She replied. Deku's face changed its emotions suddenly. He only chuckled amused and shook his head. Uraraka raised a brow in confusion. Did she said something funny? He immediately stopped chuckling and looks at her again. Hiding? Why I would do that, he questioned. Isn't that obvious? To hide your true identity or intentions or whatever. Uraraka pointed out the obvious. And yet, here am I in middle of a huge crowd, having a conversation with a UA student about who I really am. I wouldn't have done that if I was trying to hide, he said with smirk. It sends shivers down her spine. What? She could only say that much. I'm not hiding. You know why? He started leaning down to face her, making her step back a little. She could only see seriousness in those green eyes. She held her breath, as if that will help in the situation anyway. Because I don't care. he said straightforward and moved his face away from hers. She blinked a few times to process everything and realized what he said. I don't care. If I was hiding, nobody would have known about my existence. If I wanted to hide, I've destroyed every evidences that led you to me. I'm not a fool to give anyone information that I don't want them to know. You wouldn't standing here if I put any effort in laying low. He said the truth. She cannot spot any lies. He's real honest. He's straightforward with every replies. She wasn't expecting this to go without any drama. And that's why she's struggling to keep her composure. She was only prepared for a negative retaliation. But now he doesn't even care that someone knows him. That pushed her into the unknown territory, and half of the questions she wants to ask just escaped her mind. But I'm here now. The only mistake I did is to keep the secret with me. I should have informed my teachers beforehand I came here. That way, they'll know why I never came back. Uraraka said. Deku didn't even show any emotions. But I thought true heroes won't let the innocents die. If you die out here even after you told them the whole thing, they won't be the heroes you think they are. Been searching for me for a while, but I never seen any genuine efforts by their side. He countered. Half of it didn't quite reach her understanding, but she caught the part where he called the heroes false ones. What do you know about sacrifices? If a scenario happens that way, then it's because I'm willing to die if you are brought to the justice. She said big words. It wasn't something wanted to say out loud, but she didn't care. What matters is the answers she seeks. Deku's eyes went cold, and Uraraka saw something she never saw, but wanted to see. Those eyes now matched with the same portrait in Izumi's room. Her dead brother. She almost forgot that in the tension of the moment. Uraraka knew that she said something wrong, and it hit him mentally. Izumi told about who he was. Even though the Ghost Rider is a counter-opposite of the Izuku Midoriya in Izumi's stories, Uraraka did believe her. And she slowly recalled about everything Izumi said. Maybe her words came out harsh. And if he's that same boy, then it must have hurted him. I had to suffer. Until I was dead. He said in a low and slow voice. Those words hit her soul. It was scary and also saddened. The pain in those words almost got hidden by his usual intimidating tone. But she heard it. She almost missed it, but heard it faintly. Uraraka sighed and looks up at him, and she forced herself from feeling guilty. He's not that same boy anymore. But that doesn't give you the right, Deku. It's way too extreme. And you found the wrong bunch to take your anger out on. I'm sure none of you murdered had a role in bullying you, she said. If that's the only thing you can come up with, it's not even close to the reality. Sometimes things are possible which doesn't make sense. Deku replied and walked away towards the bench he was sitting. Uraraka watched him go inside. She needs information. Throwing accusations ain't a good approach. So she decided to behave with the situation. She nodded to herself and moved closer to him. She took a seat next to him and looks at him in a different perspective. Until now she treated him as the rider. But how about see the boy who turned into this monster? How is it possible? I do believe Izumi, and I've seen your grave. How is it possible unless you faked your death? She started with that topic. He didn't spoke anything. So she decided to continue. I do believe her. She told me how much she missed your presence, how everything changed since you're gone, and how she'll never see you again. But then I'm seeing you here, alive or undead or whatever. Going on out there, massacred those people and calling yourself the Ghost Rider. How a boy like you turned into this? How are you even alive? She asked some of the questions she wanted to ask. He looks at her. I never survived. I'm dead and I was that boy, you know. But I changed. Everyone will if they realize the truth. You too. He said, but before she could ask more, a crowd gathered around a big screen on the wall. The news are out. Deku pointed at that direction. I guess it's only the matter of seconds now. Meanwhile, The massacre left the civilians horrified and led them to a point where they demanded answers. This time, no heroes or villains perished. The bodies belonged to the local citizens, and the police promised another promise of expanding their reach.